Hello and welcome to Mistakes Were Made. This is a channel that I created to document my family's progress with debt reduction and eventual elimination. Today we are going to do our budget with me for the second pay period in April. So this is going to cover April 16th through the 30th. All right, well, why don't we just jump right in? We're going to start with income, and we are looking at $1480.59 and $2133.03 and then $83. We don't do anything for Etsy in the budget with me because we don't know what kind of income we're going to get. And then we have 200, oh, that is a terrible looking too. $265. Is that right? No, $66.66 for the rollover. Now, this is speculative because we have not 100% closed out the pay period, the previous pay period. Today is the 15th, which is the last day of the pay period, so we will be doing that in just a little bit. But some of these numbers, if it relies on information from the previous pay period, will be a little bit speculative. Now, before we move on and do the calculation, I did want to touch on a couple of things. So first, because this is the first paycheck of the month that I get, it is the one that will show a a bonus if there will be one, and I did get one, so that's why we're at $21.33 here. But more importantly, if you've been following the channel, you are aware that we had a bit of a PTO payout snafu earlier. And if you are new and so you don't know what I'm talking about, essentially my partner's company, they have a policy where once a year they will pay out any PTO that the employees have banked over a certain amount. Now, I don't know what that level is, but if we say it's 100 and somebody has 130 hours, they pay out that 30 hours, bringing it down to that limit of 100. Well, this time around, they did a goof. What I am not sure of is whether, if we use the 100 and 130 example, whether instead of paying out 30, they accidentally paid out, like 50 or 70, or if maybe something got swapped, so they paid out 100 instead of the 30. I'm not sure what triggered the error, but it was a case of they paid out more hours than should have been paid out, rather than they did pay out the 30, but they gave too much money for it. But end of the day, a bunch of people ended up getting paid more than they should have, so the company came up with a fix, and I'm assuming it was pretty much the same for everybody else, just slightly tailored to how much of an overage they got. But for my partner, he was paid $1,000 too much. Now, luckily, we found out that this was an error early enough that we could save some of that money instead of spending it or, in putting it towards debt or whatever. So we banked it and we waited to see what is the impact of their fix going to have on his paycheck. So what they decided to do was take $250 out for a period of 4 pay periods. And they took it out of his gross, so before taxes and all of that were figured. And so that had the effect of dropping his pay down to around $1479, $1480. So because of that, we could then make the calculation of, this amount is effectively $82 to $83 less than what he normally gets per pay period. So we were able then to say, okay, over the next 4 pay periods, we are going to take $83 out of that banked money that we set aside because we knew something was going to happen. Now, the reason I bring that up is this is pay period number 4. So presumably next pay period, it should be his normal pay, no deductions, garnishments. I don't even know if you call it a garnishment because it's them fixing their own problem, their own mistake, but nothing that should reduce his pay artificially. The other benefit is he is scheduled to get a raise, and next pay period should be our first opportunity to see what is the effect of that raise going to be. And it's nice because it also means we're not going to have to kind of do a guesstimate game, because we would also be seeing the reduction from the PTO fix going in and applying. So long story short, this issue has been resolved. Plus, we're going to see next pay period what increase the raise he's supposed to get is going to have on his pay. And that doesn't just have, current impacts on our budget, but more long-term means there may be more flexibility on how much money I need to be contributing to the budget once my job goes away. So we may be able to extend that bank of money longer if it takes me a while to find a job. But then also, once I do have a job, then if that job ends up being less than what I'm making now, the fact that he got a raise may help, make those adjustments a little bit. If I am able to get something that's fairly close, then of course that just means more money available for debt reduction and stuff like that. So let's move on though, because I have spoken on that way too long. So we're going to do 1480.59 plus 2130.03 plus 83 plus the messy $200.66, which puts us at a total of $3,897.28 for the month. Now, our bills tend to be fairly static as a general rule. These ones are all first pay period, so we are ignoring them, and then we get into second pay period. Now, I will say that the second pay period tends to be far more, what's the word I'm looking for? Dynamic, because that is where most of the costs of our utilities come in. And this, in particular, the utilities that can fluctuate based off of use. So our electric bill, our gas bill. The water bill can fluctuate. That tends to happen a little bit more in the summer when we're doing our garden watering and things like that. But because of the water drama, we move that to the first pay period anyway, so it's not affected here. So along those lines, we typically will budget $150 as an estimate for the electric and the gas. And if you've been following along, you know this, so this is for anybody who might be new watching. But because of the timing of this particular budget with me, we have already received the email invoices for both of those, so we do know exactly what we are going to be charged. And it is $160.36 for the electric and $108.17 for gas. I'm very glad to start seeing the gas bill coming down. It's typically pretty low during the summer. I would love to start to see the electric come down, but I guess you win some, you lose some. Now, what do you guys do as far as budgeting things where usage is going to have an impact? Do you over budget every month by a significant amount so that whatever it's going to be, you're going to be covered? Are you more of a reactive, which is kind of what we are, especially if we get hit with something much higher than we were expecting, and it's just you have to make the budget work because you got charged $190 and the most you actually did for your estimate was $150, which is a situation we had with our gas bill not too long ago. What are what do you guys do to kind of mitigate or deal with those kinds of situations? I'm curious if maybe there's a better way that we could be looking at these. Waste management, we do not do this month. It is an every other month one, so next month it will come due. Comcast is $101, and we have $99 for our cell phone bill. Now, this one, we did make a little bit of a change to our service, so I'm anticipating it should come down by $9, but I want to wait to see what a full bill is after the change before I change what our estimate that we're putting in is. With the taxes and fees, who knows? It could be 92, 95. It's hard to say. So we will wait and see on that. But next time around, I'm going to anticipate that we will have a firm idea of what that will be going forward. Okay, so if we add all these together, 160.36 plus 108.17 plus 101 and 99 gives us 1343.53, and if we subtract that from our 3897.28, that gives us a total remainder of $2,553.75. Okay, so this pay period is when we fund our emergency fund. It's just $25, but every little bit helps. And for right now, at least, we're going to do our normal $200 buffer. We're not going to put the cents in because we figure that out at the end after we've calculated everything. Same thing for the job loss savings. We won't know what we're going to put in there until we've done all of the math and figure out what we have left. So total for now is $225. And we'll just add that to our negative thing here, and that puts us at $2,328.75. So talking about costs that don't tend to change very much, our cash envelopes don't really change all that much at all. And I think that's probably a good thing, because we can kind of get into a rhythm and kind of know what we can expect and how much we can expect to be in a particular cash envelope, barring any need to dive into it. Really, the only thing that'll change here on a somewhat regular basis is if we have a 5 Monday month versus a 4 Monday month, because that's when what we use to determine how many grocery weeks we have. So that will bump the groceries up from a $200 to $300, depending on where things fall. That said, we are trying to make sure that we are being flexible and keeping an eye on where things stand as far as known costs and stuff like that. So if we do need to make changes, we are not so set in stone that we can't do a little bit of shifting. So for example, this license, I've already paid my business license for this year. So now we're just building up so that there's enough money for me to renew my driver's license. Well, depending on if I do 4 or 8 years, we'll see how much money we have managed to save to see what I can afford. Though I'm kind of leaning towards, even if we don't have enough saved, to just go ahead and do the 8-year if it's offered, plus the real ID cost, simply because then, I don't have to worry about it for another 8 years. Then we'll start bulking back up so I can pay the business license again next year. And the business license, it's $100 one year and $150 the next, and it flips back and forth. So once we know A, how much it's going to cost for the driver's license, B, how much that reduces what we have in our cash envelope, I can then make that calculation of, okay, we need to have $100 by March of next year, so this number could change. We'll see. Maybe it won't. So we've got the pets at 160 and prime is 12. Similarly for taxes, this is very much dependent on how much we sell. And, you know, it is very intermittent, any sales that we make on the our Etsy shops. So, and I say us and we, but the Etsy shops are mine. My partner doesn't do anything with Etsy. So I'm going to have to keep an eye on the tax situation and make sure that we are funding this appropriately based on the how much money we have coming in. And since that fluctuates quite a bit, you know, then we need to kind of be on top of that. Okay, so let's add these together. And 100 and 5 and 210 and 20, 160, 12, and 20 is 571. And if we take what was left over for income after looking at our savings, that leaves us with $1,757.75. Okay, and now we're going to get to one of my favorite sections. And you know what? Maybe, why don't we try zooming in a little bit? I don't know if it, let me know if it's okay and easy to read the way I had it before in the more zoomed out thing, or if it's better and more helpful to have this zoomed in view. Most of the time I try and make sure I zoom in, but I'll be honest, I did forget to do it as we were going through this side. So just let me know what you prefer. Okay, so awesome. We get to cross out Bank of America. We get to cross out Mom Loan. Those are done. This is the last of my sheets for this that has this stupid typo that bothers me to this day. So I did fix that on the new one, and I have removed these 2 loans from the spreadsheet template. So we won't be seeing those anymore. But we are going to be doing $400 for City and $250 for Discover. Reflect is not paid during this pay period. We are not going to put anything in the extra debt payment because, like the savings one, we need to wait and get through all of this first. So that is a total of, oops, I just said we're not filling that in, of $650. So let's add that to what we had before, which puts us at $1,107.75. Now my allowance for this pay period is $30. Total is going to be $30. So we'll just add $30. And then we have $1,077.75. Last but not least is the standard $100 transfer that we do every pay period. So it ends up being $200 total for the month. This is the last transfer that we're going to do for the garden. So the original goal for the garden was $500. And since we have gone through 5 pay periods, that means we've had $500 allotted to that. Now we also put some of the yard and garden cash envelope money towards the garden this last couple of months, as well as we did some savings challenge money that went to it. So technically we ended up with more than $500 allocated to the garden, which is fine. But at this point, I don't think there's anything else major we need to get. There's, I want to say, between 5 and 8 starts that we want to get. a tomato, and a few different kinds of pepper plants, and then some soil, 4 or 5 bags of soil, and I think all together that might come to $90. So the only thing I can think of is one of our hoses did split last year, so we might still need to buy a new hose, which those can be surprisingly expensive for some reason. But even so, depending on how things go, if there's some overage, I'm not sure if we want to just leave it there in case something does crop up, or transfer it to whatever new long-term goal we do, or just put it, into the savings bucket, or how we're going to handle that. The other thing we haven't decided yet, and actually we haven't even talked about it, is what long-term goal we want to replace the garden with. So that is something we are going to have a chit chat about, and by the time we do our next budget with me, which will be for the first pay period of May, we will have made that decision, and we'll let you know where that money is going to go. And it may be that instead of allocating it all to one goal, we might break it up between multiple. We'll just kind of have to see what we decide. Okay, so let's get down here where we have $100, and we just add that there. Oops, you couldn't see that. See, boop, boop. 977.75. Okay, so while I do love this section up here, this is probably my favorite part, because this is our leftover income. And for as long as we have any leftover income, I am going to be super excited, because it means we are able to pay that much more down on our debt. And right now, also help augment our savings. So for those who are new, we do a calculation of 75% to debt and 25% to savings. So for the bank of money that we are putting together for our savings when my job goes away. So we'll take the 977.75 and subtract. Oh my gosh, you guys can't see what I'm doing. Let's try that again. We'll take the 977.75 and subtract 75%, which gives us $244. We're not going to worry about the cents for this. Then we take the 977.75 and subtract that 244, which means we are going to have $733 for the debt portion. So this is debt and this is savings. All right, which also tells us that we have 75 cents left, and that is going to be added over here to our rollover. So we're going to roll over $200.75. But we're not done yet, because we are going to divvy out this amount. And what I do is, this is going to be for City, and this is going to be for Discover. Now, the way I do this is the same way previously we did the calculation for the savings, in that I like to keep it round at zeros, 25s, 50s, 75s, and then of course the 100, which becomes 0 again. So in this case, as an example, we have $733. So when we're doing the allocation towards debt, the closest one is going to be the 25. So we are going to put $725 to that, which means we will have $8 left over. That is going to go to Discover. And I could absolutely put all of this towards debt to the City, which is our focus, but I don't know if it makes sense, but it makes me feel better. And my partner's like, well, if that's what you want to do, he doesn't really care. It's all going to debt. But the fact of the matter is, Discover is the only card at this time that we have that is actively applying interest. And so every little bit of payment that we make helps to mitigate the impact of that interest cost, which means just a little bit more of our standard payment of $250 affects the actual debt so that the debt gets reduced. So that's the reason why we're doing it this way. I'm trying to incrementally bring the Discover card cost down a little bit more each pay period, if we can, than what the standard monthly payment is allowing. So that is the thoughts and reasoning behind it. It may or may not make any sense, but that's what we're doing. Okay, so here we're doing the 733, and then we're just going to note here 725. Oopsie, I'm getting all hung up over here. $725 for city and $8. It's going to go to Discover. All right. So that's what we are looking at for our budget for next pay period, which starts tomorrow. What are your thoughts? Any questions, suggestions, ideas? Oh, I forgot to write down over here, 244. That is very important. Yeah, the budget seems to be working for us very well. We are trying our best to stay on top of it, stay within budget. Obviously, life happens and stuff can come in and mitigate things, but we are very much keeping in mind the fact that if we're spending outside of the budget, or if we're spending outside of what we have in the cash envelopes and we don't have any additional income to offset that, it impacts how much we can apply to our debt, and of course to bolstering the savings a little bit more. So we do our best to balance that out when things come up that we have control over. When stuff comes that you don't have a lot of control over, you just kind of have to ride the wave and deal with the fallout and see where things land at that point. But very excited. I will be looking forward to being able to add another $725 to the tick mark of debt coming off of Citi. And yeah, all right, well, that is the end of that. I want to thank you all for watching. Again, it is a little bit of a longer video, but you know me, at this point, I do like to jibber jabber just a little bit. So thank you, as always. I really appreciate the time that you take, and not just to watch, but to comment and provide your encouragement and suggestions. So we'll see you in the next one.